Hi, I'm Sarah Nash, and I'm here today with Marquita Bass, who is the author of Orange is the New Pink: My Battle with Triple Negative Breast Cancer. Marquita, welcome.
Thank you, Sarah, for having me. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So tell me about your experience going flat.
Oh, absolutely. In 2012, I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer. And unfortunately, within 1 month of my diagnosis, my aunt died from the exact same diagnosis. It was just really a difficult time for me. My aunt's experience colored my approach to treatment because I had watched her to struggle with something called expanders. And she was back and forth to the doctor, infections in her skin. It was all related to expanders that she had gotten. Consequently, when I was diagnosed, I decided I was not going to get expanders. So my initial inclination was I was going to go flat. I didn't care. I wanted to live. And as some of you know, some triple negative breast tumors can be aggressive, and I just wanted to live. Well, a good male friend of mine took me to dinner and we had a conversation. I asked him, I said, well, what do you think about me not having breasts? What do you think about me being flat? So he paused and hesitated and said, most partners will not find you attractive. I'm just sorry to say that. And I was crushed because I've always had a good self-image and I was crushed. So I talked to my surgeon and she informed me that there was an option where you could have direct implants and not have to have the expanders. And also, I was a 32 Gs. So I had the skin, I had everything that was necessary to do the direct implants, and I got implants. I had implants for 7 years. And I had more problems from implants than I had from the tumor, from cancer. I had a hematoma, and that's where you have a blood clot. And I had to go back for a second surgery, and it had to be drained. Eventually, that implant had to be replaced because of scar tissue. I slipped and fell, and I just had problems. So consequently, I decided I don't care if I'm not attractive to anyone. I'm over this. I have to do what I think is best for my health. So in 2019, Sarah, I had an explant and I have not looked back.
What has that been like for you to having experienced reconstruction and had implants for a long time and then transitioning to being flat? What has it been like? How has this affected your identity and your self-worth?
I have to be honest, initially I suffered from body image sadness. That's, some women, they do it and they're like, hurrah, hurrah. That wasn't me. However, eventually I had to make a paradigm shift and decide that I am enough and my identity is not contingent upon what someone else thinks about me. What you think about me is none of my business. And I had to really say, I'm still that person. Now, oftentimes we say, oh, I can't wait to get back to my old self. I had to learn to love a new Marquita and be comfortable in my skin and say, I'm okay. And another thing I had to decide was, some women wear the breast form, and that's fine. I don't have an opinion. So I did that for a little while. And then I was over that. So now I'll just wear a bralette sometimes and I'm okay. But again, there was some body image sadness. I had to make a paradigm shift and decide that I'm enough. I'm not defined by my breasts, and I'm not defined by cancer. And so now my self-identity and my self-value is great.
Would you say that process of going through the paradigm shift has actually improved your self-worth from pre-cancer days?
Absolutely. I'm going to tell you why. I was a size 6 and I wore a 32G.
That's a bra size? That's a bra
Yes.
size?
And you know what? That's hilarious
Okay.
because I had to order my bras because you can't just walk into a store and find a 32G. So I really had to order my bras from Europe, this company in Europe, because I couldn't get them locally. So I had to, but you know, I thought I was that girl who defined my sexuality by my breasts. I love my breasts. I had nice breasts. I like having sex with my breasts. I love them. However, I like living more. So I had to redefine, it forced me to redefine who I am as a person, to love myself, and to approach dating differently.
So tell me about dating during all of this.
So I actually continued to date when I had implants. And with implants, men are more agreeable, or they know about women with implants. So it wasn't really an issue when I had implants. In 2019, when I went flat, there was a totally different look for me. And that's when I dealt with the body image sadness. And finally, I got to a point where I said, this is me, this is who I am. And also it forced me to be more, to look at dating in a different way, and not necessarily from the physical, but more from the person. You know, I had to learn to love my new self. And I had to say, if a person cannot accept me as I am now, they are not for me. That's not the partner that I should be with. And I found out, Sarah, most partners don't care, because when you value yourself and you are confident in who you are, you give off an energy. As opposed to when I was dealing with body image sadness, I'm sure my energy was not a good energy. So I had to address that, because if you don't repair things, you will repeat what you don't repair. So I had to address that before I even started dating. And once I got there, and I got there just through talking to people, I attended some conferences by Image Reborn, and I had to work on me first. So, you know, now I'm at a point where I've been dating people. Now, don't come out of the gate talking about my cancer experience, because my cancer experience is only a part of me. So I decide when I want to share that. So I don't on date one, you know, we're at dinner, I don't come out of the gate. But maybe around the third date, if I think this can potentially be a partner long-term, that's when I share my story. And again, most partners don't care. So I've had a very, very good experience. And I want to share one thing. I actually, you know, when it comes to dating, you know, like I said, I think before you start dating, you need to repair things or repair issues that you've had previously in relationships. Also, know that you are not your breast. Also, you know, you want to look for someone who has integrity, someone who you think would be loyal to you, someone who's funny, or whatever your criteria is. But set your standards. And sometimes I hate to use that word standards, because that kind of, you know, implies you are much better, but you're not. Have standards, stick to your standards. And I want to warn you, don't allow not having breasts to make you stay in a relationship or accept a relationship that you would not ordinarily. Be your authentic self and love yourself, and you will meet someone who's worthy of you, because you are worthy of love. And just be patient.
I love all this. I am married and I have been married for many years, so through my cancer and going flat, but I'm just sitting here thinking I need to hear this. Even now, it's good to hear this. And certainly my younger selves, I'm just trying to pass this back to my younger selves too, when I was doing a lot of dating. Now, I don't know about you, but one of the way, actually, I met my husband through online dating, which is a very common way that single people find each other these days. Um, have you done any online dating? And if so, I'm thinking if I was still single and doing online dating, I would want to ask you, so you don't let people know in your profile that you're flat. You don't mention it, you don't mention that you've had breast cancer, you just that is not something you feel the need to let people know right away.
Sarah, I would not be defined by this diagnosis. And don't get me wrong, I'm not being dishonest with people, but I don't think that is as important in the beginning. I want, the other things are more important. Do you have integrity? I share with them who I am as a person. And my breast cancer experience is not who I am as a person. That's a small part of something that happened to me. And I think there's an appropriate time to share that information. So no, I don't mention that initially. And this is a kind of funny story. I was in a relationship for over a year. I ended the relationship last October. And once I decided that this is somebody I would want to be in a long-term relationship with, I asked him to read my book. And he read the book. So in the book, in the last chapter, in the epilogue, that's where I talk about getting the explants. And he didn't seem fazed by it. So that was my way of letting him know, if you're a breast man, I am not your girl. And that's how I did it that time. But there have been other times when I met people not online. And maybe by the third date, I've had a conversation. I've had breast cancer, I've explanted, and just a conversation. So yes, like I said, breast cancer and being flat is not who you are. And it's imperative that you get to that space so you can move forward and know that you're worthy of love and you're worthy of the mate that you want, who's compatible with you, and not just to have someone around. That's important.
If you could go back in time to that dinner conversation with your male friend who said, partners won't find you attractive, what would you say now?
That gentleman and I, we're actually good friends still.
Yeah.
And this is kind of hilarious. And we've had that conversation. So I told him later, about that conversation and how it affected me. And guess what happened? He apologized. We had the conversation after I had my explant surgery because he came over to help me out. And he apologized and actually offered to help me feel comfortable not having breasts. I was like, no way. But, the thing about cancer, some people just don't know what to say. And although he said that, there's a concept called intent versus impact. And I don't know if he knew the impact that it had on me. And I told him about it. He apologized and all is good. The one thing I want to say is, if I had this type of YouTube channel available to me 10 years ago, if I had other breast cancer groups where women were flat available to me 10 years ago, if I had known about implants and, they just don't put an implant in, there's other stuff that they put in there to hold the implant. If I had been more informed, I don't care if God had told me that, I would not have gotten implants. So I was not well informed on what getting implants entailed. But We have reconciled. Not that we fell out, but we've had that conversation. He's tried to help me out now, but no thanks.
Well, and I think your point that even just in the last several years, there's been so much more available to women trying to make these difficult decisions about our bodies during breast cancer. And I also just want to say, so thank you for adding to the resources that are available for women, considering their options. So the internet, I think, has been really helpful for the flat movement and women's health in this regard.
Sarah, you are welcome. And for some reason, I just feel compelled to share my story, to share information, and to be a patient advocate for women. Because I think the more you know, the better choices you can make. I'm not a proponent, or I don't encourage women to do anything, but I encourage women to know as much as you can about any treatment options. And that is what I'll do for as long as I'm here. It's just encourage women. And more importantly, women who've gone flat, you're not alone. And it is a viable option. And you are still beautiful. And it took me a little time, but you will get your sexy back.
Is there anything else that you would like to add?
Yes. One thing I said most men don't care about implants. So I had one experience I would like to share where there's this gentleman, and he and we dated maybe 22 years ago. And he knew I had breast cancer. He knew I had implants. He didn't know about the explants. So when he read my book, we were supposed to try to reunite. I'll just say reunite. And he read the book, he didn't show an interest. And I think it was because I was flat. And I was really disappointed. Not because he didn't show an interest, because I was looking for a hookup. But I can honestly say that's the only person who I know treated me differently. And, that was fine. That's why he was always just a hookup anyway. So I was fine with that.
I think that I appreciate you acknowledging that you did feel sad
Oh,
when you
absolutely.
went flat. Like, that was a big change, and this hookup guy rejecting you, it hasn't changed or taken away from any of the things that you've shared. It hasn't. Your self-worth is still strong. Like, his rejection you did not allow his rejection to have the power to define you.
I agree with you 100%. And because, we get rejected all the time for other things. It doesn't have to be because you're flat. But I was sad. I was very sad by that, because that was the first time, and it may happen again, but nevertheless, I will continue to not lower my standards, believe in myself. I am so happy with my choice. And more importantly, I am enough because of who I am and the person I am. I am enough because I have integrity. I am enough because I am smart. I am enough because I am dependable. I am lovable. And so I am enough. And being flat will not define who I am. I am not my breast.
Thank you so much, Marquita, for sharing that message with all of us, for sharing your experience. That feels like a beautiful place to leave this conversation.
Thank you, Sarah, for the opportunity to share my experience. And I hope my experience will help someone else. So thank you, Sarah, for this opportunity.